Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Curry. I am Deputy Director of Michigan Association of Counties. I appreciate you taking the time to log into the webinar. Our goal here today is to just kind of give everyone an opportunity to hear a little bit more about Proposal 1. I have Dave Waymeyer here from the Safe Roads Yes campaign, and he's going to be doing most of the speaking. I will be here to answer any questions. And incidentally, if you do have questions, on the right-hand side of the screen, you can type in your questions, and we will be more than happy to announce them to everyone and answer them. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Dave, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to this group, a very important group of folks, about all the implications of the Proposal 1, the Safe Roads Yes proposal. As you know, the vote will be taken on May 5th, and it's really quite important if we're going to be able to figure out how to fix our roads. We're coming into pothole season right now, and we can see every day, even more importantly, how vital it is for us to move ahead on some sort of transportation funding. We put together a PowerPoint slide show here, which is not advancing. Okay, that tries to lay out some of these issues. The first part is just trying to discuss why we're doing this, and we've gone from having a road system that is kind of ha-ha, oh look, I just drove from Ohio to Michigan, look how much worse the roads are, to holy cow, I just blew out a tire and bent a rim, that's $500, to actually having situations where people are very concerned about safety. We have scaffolding underneath the bridges. We have bridges that are being propped up today. My understanding is one of the bridges on I-94 was found to be pretty serious shape, and they've had to go through, and there's a big article in the Free Press about that today. To school bus drivers that are concerned about how they're going to be able to move forward and deal with these types of issues. So it used to be just a matter of kind of swerving to avoid potholes. Now that's an everyday event, and you have law enforcement officials that are telling us that they used to be concerned when they get a call that they would have to be ready for whatever they got to when they got there. They didn't worry too much about getting there. Now they're paying a lot of attention to the roads they're on. They have to drive a little slower. Some of these people have large, expensive, multi-million-dollar fire trucks and the like, are concerned about driving them on some of our roads and damaging them, in which case would be a really serious issue for the community, those types of things. So our roads have become, quite frankly, unsafe. So this proposal does three things. One, it really improves the safety of the roads. It gives us a chance to try to get back towards an even keel. Right now, about a third of our roads are considered in poor shape. About a third of our bridges are also in poor shape. This helps us move into a situation where we can start addressing some of those issues and provide better safety for our families. There's a number of guarantees that are in this for taxpayers. Makes it a little complicated, but I'll walk through those. And third, it's very important to realize this is it. There really is no plan B of any substance that's pending in the legislature. You'll hear some people talk about it. We've talked about trying to do this for 4 or 5 years now. In fact, it was recognized back in the 1990s that the proposal that passed and the 4-cent increase in the straight gasoline tax was insufficient. This is the best chance, it's our only chance we have to deal with this in a reasonable way in the near future. So what does the proposal do? It increases funding for transportation, overall transportation, by $1.3 billion, for roads and bridges, $1.2 billion. That keeps our roads from getting worse and allows state and local officials, including county road associations, to start attacking unsafe conditions. The extra $100 million that is in this package is earmarked, as the Constitution requires, for the Comprehensive Transportation Fund. That helps pay for different issues, including mass transit, including rail, which is vital to our agricultural interests, to harbor dredging and things like that. So the shortcomings we've had in the past have affected all those areas as well as our roads. There's 3 guarantees I mentioned. One, for the first time, every penny that you pay in state taxes at the pump is going to transportation. Today, as you know, one of the concerns that folks have is that some of the amount of money that you pay on gasoline, i.e. the sales tax, 6 cents on the dollar right now, goes to schools and local governments. That would be taken off. So now every penny that you pay will go to the transportation. We've got better road guarantees. There's increased warranty provisions that are put in place for the state and for local units of government to use, so that we have better roads, and if, in more cases, if road builders build substandardly, then they will have to pay to fix those roads and come back and have a guarantee on it, not taxpayers. And our third is addressing another issue that you hear probably from time to time, that we've been kind of rating the school aid fund. The way this proposal one was written back in the 1990s, it called for all the money in the school aid fund to go to education. This specifies that it only goes now in the Constitution to K-12 schools and community colleges. So it kind of limits the game playing that can be done legislatively and focuses this money where I think a lot of people thought that's where it was going to from day one, to K-12 schools and then also to community colleges. So how does it go about doing this? Well, we increase the funding for transportation, as I mentioned. That's done by an increase in the tax on gasoline. No longer will we have a per penny, 19-cent per penny gas price tax per gallon. Instead, there's a wholesale tax that will increase with inflation. There's caps on that so it won't go out of control. There's also a floor on that so that in the situation like we have right now, where we've seen the price of gasoline dropping pretty significantly, there won't be a wholesale devastation to the fund. But in general, we know what happens to the price of gasoline. It goes up, and this will help us address some of the inflationary concerns that have been dealt with in the past. As the road construction becomes more expensive, there should be more resources to be able to pay for that. Raises the sales tax by 1 cent on the dollar. A big piece of that is used to offset the elimination of the sales tax on gasoline. So now no longer will you pay sales taxes on gasoline, just like you don't pay sales taxes on food, just like you don't pay sales taxes on services, just like you don't pay sales taxes on prescription drugs. So gasoline is now added to that. To replace that money, we had to increase the sales tax by a penny. Now, increasing the sales tax by a penny raised more than the $1.3 billion, more than the money that was actually needed to offset the reduction on gasoline. So we used some of that money to increase the earned income tax credit. A lot of people believe, and in fact it's pretty factually evidence, that an increase in the sales tax is a regressive tax. It falls on low-income families harder than it does on wealthier families because they tend to buy more items that are sales taxed as a share of their income. So the increase in the earned income tax credit helps offset that regressivity a little bit and ensures that working families who are working, the earned income tax credit only goes to families who have income. That will help offset some of the regressive nature of the sales tax in general. It also provides $300 million more for schools and $100 million more in revenue sharing. That's not just for cities it has here. Obviously, there's some implications for counties. We know, quite frankly, that the tax cuts that we've made over the last decade have really hit schools and cities hard, hit counties hard, and it's time to figure out how we make up for this. This was a negotiated solution. Some of those that were negotiating to get their vote require additional resources to move forward on these areas so that we can invest in the kinds of services that people of Michigan have indicated they want and deserve. As I said before, there is no plan B. You'll hear some rumblings perhaps in the legislature, oh, we know what we can do. We know how we can deal with this issue. We know what we can cut. Well, this is a statement from Arlen Meekhoff. Arlen is not exactly a liberal legislator, as those of you who have worked around Lansing know. Arlen's probably one of the more conservative majority leaders we've had in the Senate for a number of years, Steve. You've worked around the Capitol for a long time, too. Yep. And this is his statement. Give me a list of 20 items you're going to cut. It's going to give me $1 billion, which is really the minimum we need to make an impact on the road situation. Show me where I get 56 votes in the House, 20 votes in the Senate, and the governor is going to sign them. So far, as I mentioned before, for the last 10 years we've talked about this, very extensively the last 2, nobody's come up with a pure cuts answer, and so there's really, I think, no likelihood that that's going to happen going forward. So that means we'll be stuck in the same situation. So what that means is the roads continue to get worse. We continue to put Band-Aids on the issue. Lots of supporters all over the state. Proud to say that the Michigan Association of Counties is one of those, Township Association, Michigan Municipal League, Fire and Police leaders, Sheriff Association has come on board, and a number of sheriffs will be unveiling here in the coming days, have come on board as co-chairs of this campaign. Local chambers of commerce around the state, Small Business Association of Michigan, Michigan Farm Bureau, Michigan Environmental Council, a number of labor groups. It's really a broad coalition of people who have taken the time to study this. Not everybody's happy with every piece of it. They recognize that this is far better than doing nothing, which is the true alternative. So you can follow the campaign on these websites and on Facebook and on Twitter. We would encourage you to go through and especially like our Facebook page so you can keep updated on a regular basis. Now, Derek had mentioned that there are several questions that seem to come up on a regular basis and asked that maybe I can help address some of those in advance so that we maybe save you guys from asking some questions here. One of them is, why do we have to have a vote on this? Well, the state constitution requires a vote of the people to increase the sales tax. Once we decided we were moving to a sales tax-oriented solution, then we had to have a vote of the people. So that was really kind of set by the decision to move to a sales tax. And we had to increase the sales tax, quite frankly, if we were going to remove the sales tax on the price of fuel, on fuel at the pump. What is the effect on diesel? It actually puts diesel fuel taxes on a parity with gasoline. That's been a common concern in the past is, well, is diesel paying their fair share? Are they paying too much? This puts them in the same wholesale setup so that their prices will be kind of in lockstep. Their share of the price you pay that is taxes will be in lockstep with gasoline. What is the plan B? I've mentioned that before. You know, there really isn't a plan B. If there is a plan B, it will be a cut solution. We know we have a very tight budget right now. I could see the legislature perhaps trying to cobble together $500 million, a very, very small drop in the bucket to what really needs to be done on a one-year basis, quite frankly, and cutting that from schools, cutting that from higher education, cutting that from Medicaid. And when we cut Medicaid, that really means some real hardship for hospitals, especially for rural hospitals, who will continue to have to serve low-income families, but will not have the chance to recover any money from the state from that. And then why are some of the dollars going to these non-road issues? Well, again, it's a legislative compromise, but if you look at this in a realistic way, the Earned Income Tax Credit is a smart thing to do if you want to deal with the aggressive nature of the sales tax. A lot of local government officials and school officials have been very concerned about the level of funding we have for schools and local governments right now. The Democrats that were part of this compromise pushed hard to come up with additional resources for that. The Republicans, in order to get the votes needed for the gas tax, agreed to it. So that's how we ended up in that situation. So those are some of the basic questions. And Steve, I'm happy to try to answer anything else that comes up.
Sure. I just want to interject a couple things quickly from the MAC perspective. This issue was debated very intensely through our MAC Transportation Committee, and I think it's important to note that while we did come out and support this proposal, it was not easily done. There's a lot of things that people don't like, everything from the confusing nature of the proposal. You know, the current gas tax is very confusing, and we're actually making it simpler with this proposal. So that was hotly debated, and you know, some of the other areas that the extra sales tax money goes. The reality is, when you do eliminate the sales tax on gasoline, it creates quite a hole, and we need to fill that hole. As counties, we understand the importance of the general fund, and while we don't necessarily see any of the constitutional revenue sharing, we do get statutory revenue sharing from the general fund. So we need to be sensitive about, if this proposal does fail and they start appropriating an already overcommitted general fund, where does that leave us as far as our statutory revenue sharing or the variety of other ways we're funded out of the general fund? So I think we, as county commissioners and you know, advocating for counties, we need to look at this proposal from that perspective. There isn't a direct benefit to any of our counties unless you have a county road agency that'll get increased funding, but your county road commissions will see more money. Of course, if you have a county department that gets road funding dollars, you'll see it there. So I think it's important to note that. We're going to be sending out different pieces of literature. If you've probably seen them already, they're available on our website. There is a one-page flyer. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. 1 second. This is our one-page flyer that we've distributed. It is also available on our website, and we distributed that in an effort to give you, as commissioners, an opportunity to, or a piece of literature that you can kind of walk people through the proposal. Again, very confusing. We want you to be as educated as possible on this proposal, and this is our attempt to make it easy for you. So we're going to have that available on our website, and we've sent it out as an email blast. We've also have sample resolutions for your counties to pass if you so choose. That's always very helpful. And we also have the financial impact for each county, that if the proposal passes, what it means. So we have all that information, and of course, if you can't find it, or if you have a hard time finding it, feel free to contact us at the office. Myself or Derek can help you out, or send us an email. So at this point, we'll open it up to questions. Again, if you have questions, you can type them in on the right-hand side, and we will get them answered as best as possible. So have at it. Go ahead. We'll see what we get. And while we're waiting for those questions to pop up, I just want to note that we will have this available on the website for other people to view after this webinar is completed. That way, if there are people that you know that couldn't make it, we'll make sure that they can see it at a later time. All right, so we got a question here. How are the road funds distributed? Is it through the formula? Yes, so any of the gas tax, so by increasing the gas tax, all that money that comes through the gas tax is constitutionally guaranteed to be distributed to the Michigan Transportation Fund, which is PA 51. So yes, all the funds that are coming in through the increase in percentage to gas tax will be distributed by PA 51. All right, we got another question here. Do I understand correctly that sales tax, including the increased rate, will be charged at the wholesale fuel level rather than at the point, one sec, of sale?
Yeah, there's no sales tax on fuels going forward. So there will be no sales tax on gasoline at any point, or diesel, whatever other fuels you may have. What we've done is we've changed to a wholesale tax. The wholesale tax is going to be at a certain percentage of the overall price. So it goes to, you won't notice any difference off, I guess, is the overall goal. But it will grow slowly as the price of fuel increases.
All right. We've got a couple more questions here. Is the money for K through 12 revenue sharing and EIC guaranteed?
Well, so there will be additional revenues if this passes that goes into the sales tax pool. A chunk of that is allocated to education. So to the extent that that's guaranteed in the Constitution, then that will be generally protected. I don't believe the revenue sharing is constitutionally protected, the additional revenues. And the earned income tax credit is not. That's a legislative prerogative. The legislature can change that. I think we have some pretty strong commitments from Governor Snyder that during his term he will not be favoring that type of a situation. So I understand I had some conversations with Senator Peters' office that they have some concerns about that. And at the end of the day, it's always been a legislative prerogative to deal with the earned income tax credit. We can't put everything in the Constitution. Those of you who are lawmakers yourself in your own way as county commissioners know that you need to have some flexibility to deal with these issues, and so it makes sense to have a lot of this stuff done legislatively. I realize that creates some perhaps trust issues with the legislature, but that means that you have to keep working hard to get good lawmakers in that you can work with.
And the revenue sharing piece is constant. The constitutional revenue sharing is part of the sales tax formula as well. Okay, so that is right. Yeah. Next question. What is MAC's position on transportation formula funding to rural transit? As it stands right now, we are opposed to any changes to PA 51. That's what it's stated in our platforms. We've always been very supportive of transits that are out there, that are existing. But as far as any changes to PA 51, we've always said that we are opposed to it just because really there hasn't been a good proposal out there to say what changes to PA 51 do you want to make. When you look at the PA 51 or Michigan Transportation Fund, there's a lot of moving parts in it. So for us to take a position on more of a general area, that we've always just kind of been opposed to it just because of lack of specific proposals. But in general, we're supportive of rural transits.
And I think MAC's position on that, Steve, has really been one reason why the legislature has been reluctant to try to dig too deeply into the formula issue. It's every bit as complicated as this ballot proposal, and I think MAC has been a strong voice that's been heard.
Okay, explain how the dollars going into road funds changes from 50% to 100%. Where is the other 50% going now?
The dollars going into road funds.
I'm not sure if I understand that properly. What I can comment on is from the county road commission or road agency level, you will see an average of 75% increase in funding to the local level of your county road agencies. I'm not sure if that's what you were getting at.
You know, I've heard a variation of this question, and it goes back to why is some of this money being used for purposes other than just the roads? And again, I think as we mentioned before, you know, it's probably at least worthwhile public policy to consider adding the earned income tax credit in it. That's about $270 million. So you had to raise more than just the direct replacement money to be able to build in the earned income tax credit. And then, you know, as a legislative solution, there are a lot of people that are very concerned about the level of funding that we have in revenue sharing and for our schools, and some of these additional resources are going towards those, what some people would argue is very important purposes.
The flyer figure on basic. I'm not sure what that question is. That's from Eric. Let's see. All right. Oh, I see. Okay.
I think, yeah. So
I see. Okay, I get the question now. The clarification on that.
So yeah, I think what he's pointing out here, Steve, is that the piece that we put together says 39. Today, your average gas tax is 39 cents on the gallon, but 19 cents of that is gasoline, and the rest of that is sales tax. So about 50% of that actually goes to the road funds. Going forward, the average tax per gallon is going to be about the same, 39.40 cents. Depends on exactly the price of fuel. But 100% of those taxes will be going to road funds.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. The question was on the 50% on our flyer right here, and Dave did a great job explaining it. 50% of those dollars, almost 50% of those dollars, go to sales tax right now. Thanks for the clarification on that. Let's see. The question is, or this more of a statement, just an FYI, the flyer says 100% of fuel taxes will go towards road funds. It goes to the Michigan Transportation Fund. You're right. It does. There's certain cutouts on the MTF that aren't devoted to roads. Yes, so we will clarify that on our flyer to say 100% amount of the fuel tax is will go to the Michigan Transportation Fund. I think that's a fair correction.
Yeah, but again, it's just worthwhile noting that those areas are equally vital in terms of transportation systems for Michigan, whether it's a transit system, whether that's in an urban area, or dealing with senior citizens' needs to get around in rural communities like where I live out in Eaton County, have seen substantial reductions over the years in the ability to provide services. It also helps to make sure that our rail system is totally up to snuff. That's used heavily by agriculture. And it's also used for harbor dredging, which is a vital part of our tourism industry. And you know, we had to go through some gyrations and come up with additional resources last year out of the general fund, or maybe 2 years ago, for some harbor dredging so that people could actually get their boats to and from the Great Lakes. So all those are areas that are part of our overall transportation system. It's a relatively small $100 million piece of it, but it's really of the increase, but it's important that it be there.
All right, we've got another question here. What can we do to better educate legislators on the issue? Gamrat recently announced that she can cut the budget enough to make up $1.2 billion for roads. After all of the cutting over the past decade, I have no idea where she would get it from. She never addressed the bond payments either. You're right. I mean, when you look at the budget, people say, well, it's a $50 billion budget. But the reality is only $10 billion of that budget can be used. The rest of it is restricted funds. So can you find $1.2 billion? I agree with the statement there. No, I mean, I think that's very difficult to do. Finding this sort of money in the existing budget without getting it, you're going to have to make cuts somewhere. So where do you find cuts for $1.2 billion?
And where do you get 56 votes in the House and 20 votes in the Senate for the kind of draconian cuts that would require? It's easy for one single legislator to come out and say, oh, I know what I would cut. It's pretty hard for me to figure out how I can cut any money out of my budget at home without getting a little vote from my wife. And they got to get 20 supporters, 19 supporters in the House and 55 supporters in the Senate. Even harder, I think, some days than me getting support from my wife.
So I think, yeah, that to answer the question of how do you better educate, I think if you just continue to educate that we need new money, this is the best we have. It's not, everyone's not fully on board, but it's the best we have, and we've got to get this passed, because if it fails, where does it put us? All right, another question here. Let's see. Hold on, I'm trying to get to the top. Just scroll by it here. Okay, there's been quite a bit of concern over rail cars that are being paid for but not currently being used at a great cost to taxpayers. What provision or oversight, if any, does Prop 1 offer to protect against wasteful government spending like the rail cars?
So I listened to Transportation Director Steidel answer this down in Jackson just the other day. So he would argue, quite frankly, that that's been a prudent purchase. There's been a lot of concern about developing a rail system in the state, and that the cost, about $12 million, I think, is the cost at this point. You know, out of a transportation department budget, you know, of about $2 billion is, while not insignificant, not overwhelming. It wouldn't really exactly change the status of our roads if that had been put into that. That also came out of the Comprehensive Transportation Fund, so that money could not have been allocated for roads anyway under our Constitution. So it's really not a substitution issue there in any way. However, he has taken steps to address the issue. He says that the cars will be offered to other communities, other states that may be interested in buying them. He mentioned a Milwaukee to Chicago route where there's been some interest, or they'll break the lease. So he's trying to address that. As to the overall issue, look, oversight is always a prerogative of the legislature. We have a transportation commission right now that is involved in oversight, and you know, I think we can look at almost any enterprise that is a $2 billion enterprise, and somebody would find a different way they would want to spend that money. You know, whether that's improper or not, I guess sometimes is in the eye of the beholder, but clearly there are a lot of opportunities for oversight right now. One of the oversight opportunities that will be in place is in the road warranty issue, where there's an effort for people to have local governments, anything over $1 million, I believe, you will be asked to find a warranty, get a warranty from your builder on that project, and for the state to really kind of step up the effort on that. I think this legislature is committed to a lot of oversight too.
Yeah, and I think in addition, you know, some other bills that are enacted if Proposal 1 does pass, when Proposal 1 does pass, is the competitive bidding. So you're kind of self-regulating in that point, and making sure that the competitive bids are being received and being used so that the proper vendors are being used. So I think in combination with the warranties, there is a certain amount of legislative oversight there. Another question. Will the slides be available for us to use in providing some of local education? Yes, we will make the slides that Dave went through. That's fine, right?
Yep.
The slides Dave went through, we'll put those on our website as well so that you can download them and use them locally. And also, if you're involved in, if you have a commission that you want us to come explain this to, or if you're involved in some other groups, maybe Rotary or whatever the case may be around the state that you need people to come speak to, please let us at MAC know, and we will do our best to get someone there, whether it's someone from our staff or we'll work with the coalition to try to get people out there, because education is a very important part of this campaign. And in order for us to get this passed, we're going to have to do the very similar things that Dave and I are doing right now across the state.
Yeah, and you'll also find at the end of the PowerPoint, the presentation that I made, 2 people that you can contact. If you simply send them an email, we'll make sure that we could get speakers out to your area or do what we can to help.
Here's a really good question that I've heard a lot, and I'm sure Dave has heard a lot. What argument do you use when it's suggested that the bill be voted down and sent back to the legislator to do their job? I can tell you I've been working on this issue for the past, well, I've been at MAC for almost 4 years, and it's been an issue since I've been at MAC, and I'm sure it's extended much longer than that. And I think there is a little bit too much focus on the process that we've had to endure to get to this point. And the reality is this is where we're at. If it gets sent back to the legislature, you're probably looking at another 2 years before something's done. And I think with the winter we had again this year, and the spring thaw that's occurring right now, and the condition of our roads, if we wait any longer, it's going to be, you think safety is an issue now, let's try waiting 2 years, because again, this was not easy to get to this point. Don't let anyone say that this was just a lame duck decision. This was worked on for a very long time, and this is what came out. So I think this is our best opportunity to get something done.
Yeah, one of the things that we like to say is you never want to let perfect drive out good. Anybody thinks this legislature is capable of perfect doesn't know this legislature very well. Or any legislature, quite frankly.
Oh, John Campbell just wrote, "Oh, don't worry, Steve. I'm lining up places for you to be." Well, thanks. Hey, we're happy to do it.
You'll be having a hotel room in that county for you, Steve.
Right. Any other questions? I'll leave it open for another minute or two just to see if there's any other last-minute questions, and then we'll shut things down. And again, have this webinar available in the future for anyone that you know that is confused and you feel like this is helpful. You can direct them to our website, and we will make it available for everyone on there. So we'll let it open here for a minute or two and see if it get anything else. But we really do, while we're waiting, we really do appreciate the questions. Please keep them coming. Again, very confusing issue. The more questions you guys ask, these are, I can't tell you how many times I've heard some of these questions, and I'm sure Dave has heard them too. So, you know, we're not hearing anything that you won't hear from some of your constituents when you're out there. So at this point, we don't see anything else. Dave, did you want to say anything?
No, I just, you know, again, I think the kind of the overriding message that we're trying to deliver is our roads are unsafe. We have to do something significant in the billion-dollar range to really make a difference in that area. We have some important guarantees in this proposal, better roads through better road warranties. All the money that's allocated towards the school aid fund will go to K-12 schools and community colleges. All the money you pay at the pump will be going towards transportation. Those are things that simplify the system just a little bit, and I think will hopefully be helpful to you as you try to explain it. And then the last piece, as Steve just said, there really is no substantive plan B out there. You're going to have a lot of politicians out there come in and talk about, oh, I would cut this, I would cut that. And the reality is there's not sufficient votes to find $1.2 billion, which is really kind of the minimal you need. If you talk to some of the transportation experts, engineers, they'll say we need closer to $2 billion to really move the state forward, but $1.2 billion is a compromise for them too. And I don't think there's any chance that you'll see that kind of cut in our existing revenues coming from this legislature, as conservative as it may be.
All right, with that, just a reminder, we have our conference coming up at the end of March, March 30th through April 1st. We will also be having a panel to the whole session focused on Proposal 1, so we'll have another opportunity for another interactive learning environment there. So thank you, everyone, for your participation, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.